Hi there, Sam Gossner here, and I just want to show you my new cheesy 80s sampler template that you can use in Kontakt to make your very own cheesy 80s sample library instrument. So for starters, this will work in anything from Kontakt 4.2.5 up, and right now I just have it loaded in the most recent version of Kontakt 5. I'm sure this will be a funny video in a couple years when Kontakt 6 or 7 or whatever comes out. But anyway, so all we need to do to get this really rolling is to get some samples mapped. So for now, we're going to work on a flute. We're going to pick out some samples. So here are some samples of a concert flute that I sampled a while ago. And I've decided we're just going to map one note per octave. You can see here, this instrument is actually fairly well sampled. So I'm going to pick one of the C notes per octave. You can see there's actually 2 round robins in this sample set. That would have been a luxury back then. Alright, there we go. And I've copied these right into my directory here. So the next step, and this is kind of optional, I do have a lo-fi effect set up in Kontakt, although it doesn't have an anti-aliasing filter, so it kind of sounds understandably lo-fi. You may have better luck doing a low-pass filter instead. Instead, I'm just going to go in Adobe Audition, clean up our samples, and get it mapped. So you can see here this is 3.96 megabytes on a Windows machine. So that would have been pretty much absolutely uncommon in the 80s. Maybe in the 90s, early 90s, you would have seen this starting to happen, you know, like the original EMU orchestral sample set type thing. So the first step we can do, look at the length of these samples. We got 9 seconds, 11 seconds. Oof, the lap of modern luxury. Instead, we're going to cut these down to maybe 2.5 seconds. And that's probably more than we need, but I just want to make sure I have plenty of room to get a nice clean loop point. We also have the amazing luxury of having looping crossfading, so we can actually crossfade our loop, make it even tighter than ever was possible long ago. So I'm just going to save these. And now I'm going to actually run them through the match loudness function. And I'm going to set these, basically normalize them to the true peak here. This is sort of an optional step, but it probably would have been fairly common for samples back in the day to have been normalized to some extent in order to try to get them to match, especially when you're overlapping these samples across the keyboard at such ranges. So we're just going to set up our export settings. Basically in Audition we can get 2 birds with 1 stone. We can both change the sample type here, and we can also do our normalization in one fell swoop. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to click Run, and there we go. We have now reduced our 3 megabytes to a paltry 235 kilobytes. Which would have actually been not too far off for something like the Ensoniq Mirage. I mean, on the big side for sure, but you could actually fit this in the sample memory. Maybe 2 of those, not all 3. So now I'm just going to map these. So as far as I know, these should be C3 equals 60. Basically, there's a couple different ways of notating the pitch. That's why I always prefer to use MIDI note numbers when I can help it. But for human readability, that's never very helpful. I mean, unless you know your multiplications of 12 really well. Alright, so there's that mapped. The root key, the golden guy, is on each of the C's. And I've stretched out the ranges. So this is, if you've never done sample mapping before, this is velocity. So in a multi-velocity instrument, right, we'd have multiple velocity layers like so. So when you press a key harder, you get the louder and such. But this, no such thing. We are running it old school here. All right, so take a listen to this. Oh, sorry. Let me turn off the lo-fi. So like I said, this thing does not have an anti-aliasing filter, which is atrocious. So you may actually just want to remove it. But yeah, so listen to this and you'll hear what I mean when I say this sounds like the 1980s or maybe early 90s. Alright, so a few of the things that are just happening behind the scenes here. So I have, in the amplifier, I have an LFO set up, and this is coming from down here. So I have these two identical LFOs, one sending to pitch and one sending to volume. And they're both configured identically, same frequency. If you want a faster vibrato, you can turn that up. The fade-in sort of gives it a bit of a start there. And they're all set to re-trigger, of course. And you'll notice also under the source, we have the same LFO going over to pitch. And then also down here are two genuinely 80s techniques of doing different effects. So we have a chorus, which can be used to get a stereo effect. I have a Technics keyboard from the mid-80s that uses a chorus function. There's a couple different ROMpler boxes around here that all have chorus functions built in quite early on in order to give you that quote-unquote stereo sound. So I'll show you what it sounds like. I tried to get as close as I could by ear. I don't know the technical settings, what was specifically used, but it sounds about right to me. And of course, you can always play around with these settings, resave the template however you'd like it. And then there's also a delay. Now, this was one of the several different methods of creating a reverb tail before reverb became computationally possible, or at least computationally easy. In the early days, they could either play around with the tail of the envelope, or they could actually use a delay to basically just repeat the note a couple times in order to give a reverb sound. So I'll show you what that sounds like now. And of course, you can play around with the feedback to get a longer tail, and you can decrease the time to have it blend a little better. Now finally, the one thing I need to talk about with this instrument is we do need to loop these samples since they're only 2.5 seconds long. So all we have to do, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here, to open up this wave editor if it isn't open already. You see this box called sample loop. So in here, we press the on button. And now we'll go in and set up our loop start. Now, Kontakt has multiple loops. We don't actually need all of these. I should turn these off. I guess they just decided they felt like coming on. We'll just deal with one loop point here. So first what we're trying to do is we're trying to find areas in which the amplitude is fairly consistent and the overall timbre is fairly consistent. So I'm going to show you here, we're working on these low notes. Here. So those points are fairly close. Now we're going to line up our loop here. So I'll press this loop edit button, open up this view, and we want to get these waveforms as close as possible to in phase with each other. And then we'll give it a bit of a crossfade. I don't know, maybe about a second. See what that gives us. It sounds like a loop. So that was very nice. Now we can go on to the next one. You can kind of see how straightforward this is. Oh, why does it keep doing that? This is what I get for not knowing much about Kontakt. I mainly work in Sforzando format or in Maze Sampler. It's kind of like saying I mainly sit at the kids' table at the family dinner, but you do what you can. So get this lined up here, give us a crossfade, and see how this one's sounding. So here in this, that there is a timbre difference. So what we might want to do is go back in here and play around with our loop stop and start. See if we can find an area. It's hard to do this without looking at a spectral view. Like here, I'll bring up Audition so I can show you what I'm talking about. So in Audition right here, we can look at a spectral view, see what our waveform looks like. In terms of if we do an analysis of the actual frequency bands. We can also pull up a frequency analysis, and this will, once I get it out of here, and actually look at the different parts. So watch this harmonic right here, overtone. So you get stronger. So that's what's causing the timbre to change, or what is the... It's kind of chicken and egg. The timbre change is related to which overtones are, or at which strength at which time. So let's go in here, and it looks like maybe around here it stops playing around and gets a little bit more consistent. Oh, look at that. You'll see this little notch right here. That's a symptom of one of those overtones. So it's good that now we have a notch because that's showing that we're better aligned right there. So let's try that now. Oh. I mean, aside from sounding obnoxiously like a loop, it's pretty good. And I mean, they probably wouldn't have had this much amount of time. Oh, well, I guess if you just click the one right there, it all works out in your favor. Something they changed from, I was doing the demo instrument before in Kontakt 4. Not sure why. It sounded like a good idea at the time. And I could just click that and it wouldn't turn everything on. But yeah, I guess if you click the one, it'll just loop that. Let's try this. You'll notice these higher frequencies, a bit harder to see what's going on there, but... Alright, let's give this a try. I don't even hear it without a crossfade. I mean, I'll put a teeny bit of one on there, just in case there's any... Just in case anyone complains. No one should know. Alright, so we've set up this one. And you can probably imagine these will sound the same. You know, I can just show you what it sounds like with some sustaining on the chorus effect. Let me bring myself up an octave. really happy with the attack on that low one. So we can go back into our wave editor, or we can edit the original file if we want. So I'm going to go in here and bring up our sample start. And of course I'll need to turn up our attack a little. It's okay to have an attack of a couple milliseconds. No one will really notice that, and it'll just clean over any bump where your sample isn't at a zero crossing. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that little bump we were hearing, no more. It's dead. And it really won't affect your samples. I mean, here's the thing. Let me pop open Audition again in a moment when it decides to open. There it is. Let me show you. So here's our sample. I have it set in seconds here. So these are hundredths of a second. Okay, now we're at milliseconds. So that's 1 millisecond right there. Your sample really, I mean, even a good sample cutting where you're like, I don't want anything left alive, you know, you're still going to have about maybe 5 milliseconds sitting there, maybe 10 even. So that's what's going on there. So never be afraid to have a, you know, a 1, a 2, even a 3 or 4 second fade in. I mean, we're talking, what is that, negative 30 decibels. I mean, here, I'll loop this so you can, it's like you wouldn't even hear it if you didn't even know it was there. You can get such fun. I mean, that's the other thing you can do with this. If you really want to have fun, you can cut out individual waveforms like that, and make a wavetable type instrument. Now you need a up and a down. Now that's one of the problems with having a really low sample rate when doing this, though, is it makes it kind of hard to find sample points. See, these are the actual samples. This is our volume in decibels. Excuse me, which is really just a manifestation of values. In this case, a 12-bit value that was then scaled back to a 16-bit value. So it's hard to find. You see, this guy's a little bit higher. That guy's a little bit lower than the zero crossing. I mean, there's a point, because remember, audio data, it's a continuous thing. It's analog, right? And we've done a digital sampling. And you can still connect the dots and make it virtually identical. I mean, of course, the virtually identical in this case only goes up to about 8 kilohertz of bandwidth, but it's still virtually identical. So like in this case, we'd probably want to do from this guy to there. Let's see what that sounds like. See, that sounds not too bad, but watch what happens if I take out just one sample. It got sharper, and we got this upper harmonic sound going on. What happens if I include one more sample? It's flatter. So that one's pretty good, but so you're hearing that one? We went just past this guy from, you know, this is pretty much right on a zero crossing. But this guy is a little bit above. So let's keep looking. There we go. That's right on. That's pretty good, but there is a little bit. So this is kind of the annoying thing with working with these perfect acoustic, or imperfect, I should say, acoustic instruments. You know, look at, you don't realize it, but look at how much variation goes on in this. You know, this is -4 decibels down here, and it's going all the way down to, it's going between, you know, 1.5 decibels of variation over this part of a second. And it's, you have these very small variations, big variations, and it's so hard to try to figure out what are you gonna do? Anyway, I am totally lost. Let's get back to cheesy 80s time. So yeah, so I've just finished this guy. So what I'm gonna do, let me turn off that chorus that I left on. I'm gonna save this guy. So I'm gonna do save edited instrument as, and I can do a patch only, which will reference these samples, which are right next to it, or I can do a patch and samples. And that's quite handy. You can also do a monolith, which makes it into a single thing that you can like send to people, which is actually pretty reasonable when you're dealing with 300 kilobytes of data. In this case, I'll just do patch only for now, so the samples won't get resaved or anything. And we're gonna change the name. So we're gonna call this flute, is the name that you give things, which are, that's a Kontakt thing. You have to like select another box and there. And now it'll like what I'm doing. All right, so we'll save it, pop out, and there's our flute. Now you can of course close it and open it, and all of our settings, their loop points are all there. So that one's good. Now I'm gonna do the harp. Oof, sorry, this is already 20 minutes. So let's see, so this one's a bit different. So I have C3 and C5, D6, D4, D2. The harp has such a big range, it's a little trickier. So I'm going to say let's do every other octave of something. Let's do this D. I wonder what this sounds like. That D is kind of quiet, but I'll take it. And then we'll do, I don't know, do you want the really loud or medium? I'll go with loud for now. Yeah, we'll do that. Now, unfortunately, this harp, these samples are cut in stereo. They were originally recorded with 3 mics, but I don't know, actually. Maybe I can find that session. We can have a live, how do you guys feel about a live sample? Well, live recorded sample cutting session. All right, I'm gonna dig down into my archives. This will be very funny. Fortunately, I can't show you this, or else I'd have to kill you. But harp. Concert harp. Is it under concert harp? There it is. Hope this is the right harp. I never know. Well, those look like samples. All right. Hey, you know what? They're actually... Huh. I guess there were 4 microphones. The more you know. So we got... Those are glisses. So let's see what kind of difference. Fortunately, I did not annotate these in my infinite wisdom. So this one has must be a large diaphragm, or maybe a ribbon mic, and this must be a small diaphragm. That's what we've got. Sorry you can't listen to this right now. Actually, you can. Now with the technology of changing out of ASIO mode, Yes. Really? 120? Oof, you're killing me. That's what 40 sounds like. That's usable. Turn that up so you can hear it. So we got that, or why is that so quiet? Sorry, let's try this one. Or, I mean, just because one is louder than the other. Oh, I'm an idiot. I'm on a roll tonight, so. Or, I'm thinking this one. This one has a more percussive quality. So I'm just gonna do this. And now I'm gonna cut some samples. So first step is figuring out what the heck note we're looking at here. And I'm gonna use my lovely cheat. So that is G3, but if I'm not mistaken, this is using C4 equals middle C, which Kontakt isn't. Let me turn on a light here. A3 220. Yes. Okay. I have a chart that has the MIDI notes, their ranges, and their note names and frequencies. Very helpful for this. So yeah, the ranges given here are under C4 equals 60. So let's pick, all right, so there's a D4. Those are Bs. Here's our Ds. There's a nice. There we go. So first step, let's get our attack. Oof. Not doing so good, am I? So this isn't so precise. Zoom in a bit. And then I'm one of those crazy people that does this by ear. You can also look in a spectrograph. It's particularly good for these fade outs. So I'm just going to insert a marker. There they are. Give this a helpful name. Note 2. Very helpful name. And then let's try to find a high D. It's an E. Can you give me a D? Go fish. Okay. What do these E's look like? I actually quite like that. I'll take one of those, please. See, look at that. So there's a distance of 15 milliseconds before any tone actually happens. Ugh. So you're wondering, this is what that sounds like. Isn't that great? That's just getting to the pluck. But let's see what else we got. I like the idea, but this one, see, look at that. 4 milliseconds, or 8. God, I can't count. So that's half of The other one's amount of wasted space. Oh, and by the way, this is why you don't cut based on the start of a spectrograph. No, this is not the start. This is not the start. This is the start. There we go. All right, look at that. Sample precision. Come in. See, this is the handy part of spectrographs, though. You can see right about where it drops below the noise floor. And now I'll stick in a second marker. Come on. That's the one thing I would gladly trade. Oh, you can look at all the conversations had during sampling sessions that I will not be showing you. Let's give these better names. So this is, what is it? D4? Let's find out. D4. Except we're following C3 equals 60 instead, so it's really D3. And this over here is up and up. It is G5, which is really G4. So they're probably not quite as far as they could be. I mean, I could get something higher. Well, this is a harp, so why don't we actually just do we can actually just do more samples. How about a C7? Do we get a C7? We get a B6. I'll take it. Actually, that's an octave higher. B6, B5. God, this is confusing. Yeah, okay, those are good. I'll take those. All right, now let's go down a little. Ooh. I quite like that. That has a very nice sound. Very nice. All right. Where to cut? Maybe I'll cut there. You can see how much shorter these notes become. And I'm cutting these as if I were cutting more modern samples. And actually, I'd probably cut them longer if they were modern samples. This was maybe B5. Right? F5. Darn it. Dagnabbit. Come on. There we go. And those are three of our samples. So now what I'm going to do is a little magic thing. Audio within range markers. There we go. Look at that magic. This is nowhere near as the Reaper people have it, but it will do. And we'll put these in. Let me do this over here. All right, so I have it going to where we want it. And click export. And now we have our beautiful samples. Although I still want to get a low one. So let's tab back over to our actual session. Go into one of these earlier tracks. So what's our current lowest? Can we go lower? Do we want to go lower? Maybe too low. I'll take it. at the bottom of the harp is a series of metal wound strings, while the rest are either more like a nylon, or probably a gut on a nice one, I'd reckon. But these metal strings have a rather different sound. Oh, I didn't look at what note this was. Now, if you have perfect pitch, you're probably sitting there laughing your ass off right now. Because this, in fact, if you have perfect pitch, let me know, because, you know, sample note naming, I mean, I bet you'd be great at that. Probably just start your whole own business. Oh, geez, I'm crow. I did that wrong. Save selection as. There we go. Oop. All right, it was being it was being very strange. There we go. All right. So we're going to close all of this without saving. Even though I have backups, I would rather not damage my precious sample files. So total right now we're looking at 6 megabytes. Let me actually copy these over before I do any editing. So we're gonna hop over into paste in our new fresh harp samples. Woohoo! And we're gonna pretty severely cut these. Oh, there's a noise. No one saw that. No one even knew I did anything. First, we're going to, let's do our cleanup first. So I'm just going to take a denoiser. Actually, you know what? It's going to be, we don't even need to bother. It'll be fine. What am I doing? I didn't mean to do that. Instead, we want to cut it down. Let's see. Maybe, I don't know, 2 seconds? Is that the least amount bearable? Let's see what that sounds like. You can always undo. You know what? I can do better. I'm going to try 1.5. See what we got. In fact, I'm going to turn it back before the crossfade. There we go. Let's do a linear crossfade on that. In fact, you know, I should really do a little bit of a downward. Try to slightly better match the fall off we want. And there we go. We have a harp. Oh my goodness. I don't know why it did that. 1.5 seconds. Negative 12-ish. There we go. Save. Yeah, look at how long. 22 seconds. Man. You know what? We're going to give this guy, we're going to give him a little slack. You know, just because people want their nice big harp sustains. Well, someone does. And this one, 1.5. I mean, you forget how precious RAM and all that was. How expensive. I mean, earliest samplers had the amount of memory that was in something like the Commodore 64, or, you know, the earliest ones had insanely small amounts of storage of memory to put these samples in. We are so spoiled nowadays. All right, let's put these in. All right, we got our export settings how we like them. And this will do the loudness matching before it does the exporting. So don't worry about, oh no, the noise floor. It's going to be okay. I mean, the noise floor is already the noise floor. Yeah, let's run these. And there we go. Look at that. Another world record. 233 kilobytes. What do you mean? How can you make a harp that little? Trust me, I know. All right, so these should be good to go. So we have D3, F2, F5, and G4. Well, it's not the prettiest mapping I've ever seen, but it'll do. Have that one do the B flat. I mean, one of the things you can think about when you're mapping these is trying to figure out, you know, where you can put a seam, where people will definitely not notice. And of course, the rule of thumb is you have to make sure that you stretch it to the absolute ends of the keyboard, because goodness me, everyone needs, I mean, who doesn't want that sound? Like listen to this. That's a gorgeous harp right there. Just beautiful. All right, let's I named something wrong. That is not a C. Who's that supposed to be? You are incorrect, my friend. That's also an octave off. Oh, I forgot to fix that. That should be F1. Oh, that's, oh my goodness. It's, well, ladies and gentlemen, we've made possibly the world's worst sampled harp. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, it's so bad. I am ashamed of myself at the moment. I am ashamed of myself. Oh my goodness. That just sounds so terrible. Oh. But I hope you enjoyed this fantastic 45-minute video on how to make the world's worst harp sample library. So I will include both of these gorgeous instruments as well as the original tenor sax. Yeah, I'll show you what this hunk sounds like. Check this out. Gorgeous. I mean, you could you can't even fault it. It sounds so good. I mean, I didn't even know that was a sample tenor sax. Anyway, yeah, so hope you enjoy this, and I'll see you next time.